This is Ren Powell with Dramatic Roots. Each month I will let you in on an open rehearsal. These are rough drafts in the form of table readings or pub plays, audio or video. This month, Flora reads Living Off the Bones.
What do you mean, what have I been doing? I've been taking 3 capsules, 3 times a day, a measure of salt to prevent me from thinking too much of myself. Look, it wasn't my idea to be here. I have enough doctors. It seems the majority of my time is spent in doctors' offices these days. I still go to the atelier, but I just stare at the canvas. I mix paints, but no matter how I mix them, the blues or the greens, everything fades to grey. All this grey matter, dull. I overthink everything. I analyse. All day, I analyse my need to analyse. And I thought the point was to pay you so I wouldn't have to do this myself. This isn't how I want to spend my time. My life is going by. No. More to the point, my life is going nowhere. I feel myself getting older, wrinkling prematurely. I'm drying up, bit by bit, from the inside out. James brought one of his mummies home last night. Well, not a whole mummy, just an arm. Or really, just part of an arm. I asked him to leave it in the car. He said someone might take it. Right. Like someone was going to break into a Ford Fiesta looking for King Tut. He left all the windows open and the heat off because the box wouldn't fit in the refrigerator. He was worried that the forearm of some dead dude was going to give up the ghost on our kitchen counter. Bones don't bother me, but this mummy stuff, it's different. This arm, for example, it's almost decayed. But the guy was buried with this copper bracelet on his wrist, so there's all this mucky grey stuff that isn't gone yet. It's unnatural, I think. Well preserved, James says. I don't know why he's into this stuff. What's the point in preserving all of these dead pieces? When I go, I want to shrivel up and break down into a fine powder, and James can leave me in the desert. When I dropped James off at the lab this morning, he showed me a girl. A very old young girl, curled into a fetal position. Her body had dried perfectly, fragile and holding on to the shape of her last moment. There were still patches of hair on her head, and she had 2 fragile eyelashes. Her little leather feet were so perfect, every toe, every nail intact. I was captivated the way parents are over their newborn's feet. Her skin stretched taut over tendons and bones, like she might get up and walk. At some point during her transfer, her head had snapped off, and James shook it lightly so that I could hear her dehydrated brain rattle inside her skull. Just add water, I thought, and she'd be dancing around that big refrigerator he calls a laboratory. Is that sick or funny? James didn't think it was funny. He doesn't like my sense of humor. He doesn't think much of my work either. Work. He always says as though it were surrounded by quotation marks. He thinks it's a nice hobby for people who can afford those kinds of hobbies. Lately, though, he may have a point. I haven't sold a thing in 2 years. Honestly, I haven't finished anything. The gallery dropped me last week. I haven't told James. I guess because then I'd have to do something about it. I've been expecting it. They were looking for an excuse to drop me. They were happy with me at first, wild about those lonely landscapes. But with my third exhibit, I brought in 50 huge abstract pieces. I'd been manic most of that year, doing some pretty weird things with color. I still think it was some of my best work. They said I was going to get a reputation for variable quality and that I should find what works and stick with it. Be consistent. Here, well, I'm consistent now. Not a single finished work in 28 months. I'm not going to be able to keep up the rent for the atelier much longer. I've thought about barricading the doors. I'd turn off the air conditioner. And in 100 years, they could call James in to excavate. I've got so much salt in my veins and in my brain. I'd be perfectly preserved. I'm kidding, you know. But it would be one way of getting James to touch me again. He hasn't since. Well, he said at first that I'd gained too much weight with the pregnancy. Then suddenly I was too thin. Now he says I look like a junkie, unattractive. See, I've got these needle tracks in my arms. It's the medication. One of my other doctors has me take blood tests to monitor the salt levels so I don't dry out, I suppose. One of the veins in my arms collapsed last week. The doctors say I'm not eating right. I've been trying to put weight on, but nothing agrees with me. No, that's not it. Nothing agrees with what's inside of me. The real reason James doesn't touch me anymore? He's afraid. Afraid of what's moving inside me. At night, I lie in the bathtub and watch it move. My stomach moves. Not like gas. Not like loose muscles. It twists. It pushes. Sometimes I swear it's reaching. James says it's just my mind playing tricks on me. A grieving mother looking for ghosts. But it's not grief. It's hunger. She's not dead. She's waiting. I can feel her. Pushing, stretching, like she was never stillborn.